Hey everyone, Breann here with my ABA mentor, and today I am talking about my second job as a BCBA and actually my first experience in training students and doing field work. So please like and subscribe to the channel so you can get updates on the latest topics on my journey as a BCBA. And today is really important for me as part of my journey because after I had finished my first position and wasn't working directly with kids, I moved into my second position, and in that role I was working with kids, and I was working primarily with kids with autism, and I was in a center, and so all of our employees were all in the same space, and it gave me a very unique experience to kind of introduce me to what the center environment was like, what these clinical services were like as a BCBA. And this was actually my first experience in the opportunity of working with professionals as students doing the fieldwork experience and training. And when I transitioned into this role, I had already written my first draft, so to speak, and a very rudimentary draft of how I would run fieldwork supervision. And granted, this was a long time ago. It was much different than it is now, and of course things have evolved and the program has evolved, but at that time it was like my first proud moment of look, I did this program, and this is how we can make sure that we get all of these experiences in and things like that. And initially they were really excited about it, and they were like, wow, this is great, this is something we can use. And so I started with them and quickly learned that it was going to be impossible for me to maintain my caseload and my billing expectations while working with these RBT students who were going to become BCBAs. And the unfortunate thing about the situation was that I was consistently getting reprimanded for not billing, everything that I was supposed to be billing, and then I was getting reprimanded on the other side because I was not meeting with the students that I needed to meet with on a regular basis. And so it was really like a lose-lose situation for me. And there were lots of things, in addition to that were very unnerving in my opinion. And, as a newer BCBA and, just getting into the field and learning the field and all of that, I was really excited to be able to have such a big effect on the kids that we were working with, because I had come from teaching and I knew that, that wasn't really too helpful, without a lot of behavior training, and then transitioned into the clinic thinking, okay, here's where I'm really going to make my difference. And it was very clear to me that making the difference was not the priority at this practice. And that really bothered me. And, I'm not going to say that I'm a quiet person, but I do share my opinion. And so I will, have had meetings with the leadership, and I was like, hey, what's going on? Why are we requesting this many hours? This is not an appropriate number of hours. I'm not going to get behind the overextending of these hours that are not clinically appropriate. And even though you're asking me, to put this in my report and this and that, and I was, going against, quote unquote, the system that was going on at that time. And like I said, this was a fairly long time ago. So, now looking back on the trajectory of the field, this was really the beginning of the private equity acquisition that was happening in the field. And the company that I was at was actually in the process of being bought at that time. And for whatever reason, I heard later on that didn't work out or whatever. But, for me, I really got a rude awakening of what the field, in that respect was facing, and looking at, okay, quality is not necessarily the top priority right now. And that was hard for me to swallow, and that was hard for me to participate in. And so, I spoke up and, had ideas, and my ideas were not necessarily received well. And I, had a period of time where I was not only not received well, but I was targeted in that respect. I was publicly targeted in various situations with meetings with leadership and things like that, where I would be called out specifically. And it was very a toxic environment. And I remember one meeting that I had with the owner, who was not a BCBA, but like a psychologist or something. And that person, I remember specifically 2 meetings. One, the first meeting, they talked to me about how they wanted me to be a leader in their organization. And for, I guess the reasons that I had influence over the people that were around me. And so they were like, you can be, a big leader and, pushing us through this next, phase of this transition, and we're, through this PE acquisition and all of that. And I was like appalled, one, because I was like, I cannot get with your, program here, because it just did not align with what was important to me, and important for the kids. And then, a little bit of time went by, and I remember a second meeting that I had that I was literally called the poison of their organization. So that was fun. And then at that time, I basically was like, wow, this obviously isn't going to work. And they had said, this is how we feel about you, and you're terrible, and you're being a poison. And then they proceeded to escort me out of the building, which I'm going to tell you is, a pretty crazy way to get fired from a job, because if now as a business owner, looking back, like, who would be the person that I would escort is like if I thought people were going with them, like this exodus of the operation. And apparently they thought that I had some sort of power in that respect to kind of lead the charge out and be like, forget this. But I think that potentially their conscience was like, yeah, maybe we're not doing things 100% ethically, and somebody was willing to stand up and say something, and that somebody happened to be me. So, it was very challenging. I did a lot of reflecting on myself, and I was like, who am I about? What am I about? Where do I fit in this field, in a place where everywhere that I looked was people were not necessarily making the right choices, or ethical choices, or clinically appropriate choices. And it really was kind of what spurred my interest in just being like, well, I don't fit anywhere, so I'm just going to make a place where I fit. And that ended up being the direction that I chose to go. And so, yeah, if you are feeling that way out there, it's a process, it's a journey, and you're not always going to be in a place that you feel comfortable, but you do have power and influence, and you can make significant change, you know, in our field. If you are someone out there and, you know, of course, looking for mentorship, looking for somebody, you know, that understands you and somebody that you can lean on and help you achieve your goals, you know, there is a link at the bottom, you know, in the description of the video, and we have mentorship for students for our residency. We also have mentorship for BCBAs and for ABA business owners as well, and it's really just about, you know, how can we, you know, elevate the field through mentorship and training, and really getting everyone the information that they need to really make this field thrive and achieve, you know, all the goals that we all want for our kids. So that's how I got, you know, escorted out as an employee. So see you on the next video.